is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Are you money wiser? As we seek to improve our knowledge on the understanding of money matters, before any money leaves your life, ask yourself, am I money wiser?
The Be Money Wiser talk show is here to give you a platform to share your real-life financial experiences to be able to unlearn, relearn, and transform your lives.
I took a loan. I invested the money and it disappeared.
We need to decipher and understand whether forex trading is indeed so risky or manageably risky for all of us to invest in.
Capital is sokera ddala bwe bwongo.
You can have trust with your clients, trust them anyhow that you can, as long as they are paying in cash.
Let's be money wiser.
It is intellectually engaging.
Court does not sit to waste its time. If you have no defense, it chases you.
It is a ruling on the foundations. Business has been conducted in a certain way.
Banks take money from us, depositors. All of us seated here have got money in the bank. And even before you walk out, they've given that money to somebody else.
Deeply incisive.
The law enjoins us to be answerable to the sovereign of the country.
Members of the force, we have always been demanding officers to be highly disciplined and being accountable to people of Uganda.
Authentically symbolic and insightful.
We should work so hard to evacuate this power.
Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odongto.
Very welcome.
Probably the most experienced talk show moderator in Uganda, with a team of illustrious panelists. Honorable Margaret Mohanga, a veteran journalist, legislator, entrepreneur, and development consultant. And Ramadan Gobi, an economist and university don.
I've really got perturbed that in Uganda we are building parties with no membership subscription.
All on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Wherever you are, thank you so much for tuning in into UBC TV. The sun is out, and a few minutes into at hour of 8, we are entering into Good Morning Uganda Extra, where again we take off an hour to discuss issues of national concern. Well, one time an old man told me, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. If you think education is expensive, then try ignorance, and later you will tell me which is more expensive. Today I'm going to be handling issues of education to a certain level, and we are going to be getting to better understand the work that the Uganda National Commission for UNESCO does in this country and what is its role. Remember, UNESCO, that is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization. And I'm privileged to host a lady who has seen it through the education systems, well educated. That is the Secretary General of Uganda National Commission for Education. Earlier on the show, before we started this show behind curtains, I was asking her, but why all these? She holds a Bachelor's of Education, majoring in English and Literature. She has a Master's of Arts in Arts. She has a postgraduate diploma in Human Rights. She has a Master's in Management Studies. She has, but let me just end at that. for now. Maybe the more we shall know as we continue. And this is Rosie Agoy. Hope I pronounced the name Agoy very well. Person who did literature, please do not take me on that. But you're most welcome to our studios. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear viewers, and thank you for hosting me in this very old and good, memorable institution in this country. Yes.
Rose, for the public, people watching this show, there's so much that people know. We see the UN, United Nations. But this time around, we are looking at Uganda National Commission for UNESCO. Of course, it has a connection with the United Nations, education, scientific and cultural organization. But now we look at the Uganda element of it. What is this all about?
Thank you very much. I will have to start from the beginning because the beginning will let us know the link between the National Commission for UNESCO and UNESCO. UNESCO is one of the specialized agencies of the UN, established in 1945 after the Second World War, when the world was craving for peace, and it is therefore constructed on the principles of building peace in the minds of men and women. And UNESCO works with member states. There are 193 member states, and Uganda is one of them. But before we get there, I would like to let you know that UNESCO has its headquarters established in Paris, and the governance structure is threefold. There is what we call the General Conference, that is for the 193 member states, including observers, and these deal with policy issues. They elect the members of the executive board, and they also appoint the Director General, who is at the helm of the administration of UNESCO. Then we have the executive board, and this one manages the programs and activities of UNESCO, and they are also assigned special work by the General Conference. Then we have the Secretariat that is headed by the Director General. Now, when UNESCO was established in 1945, and I've just said built on the principles of establishing peace in the minds of men and women, it was thought through that it is through education, through the sciences, through culture, through communication and information, that peace can be built in these programs, and it cascades downstream to the member states. So because UNESCO is not present in member states, like you find UNICEF has country offices, the constitution of UNESCO under Article 7 provides for the establishment of national commissions for UNESCO. So you will find national commissions for UNESCO in all the 193 member states. If you went to Kenya, you'll find KNATCOM. That's why we have UNATCOM, U for Uganda. You'll find Tanzania National Commission, Rwanda National Commission, and many others. Sudan is in the process, South Sudan is in the process of establishing theirs, because they're the youngest members that have just joined UNESCO. So because of this provision, member states establish national commissions according to how it deems fit. In some countries, national commissions are housed in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In others, it is in the Ministry of Culture. You can see the program relationship. In others, very rarely in the Ministry of Science. In our case, in 1962, when Uganda became a member of UNESCO, we joined, and therefore the processes of establishing the NATCOM began. And in 1963, we became members, and we started as a unit in the Ministry of Education and Sports, where we are still housed. So that is really the relationship. And what do we do as we relate with UNESCO, as we relate with Uganda? You can see we are kind of middlewoman. I think I shouldn't say middleman, middlewoman, you know, in between UNESCO on one side and government of Uganda on one side. So we ensure UNESCO's presence in the country. What does UNESCO want member states to do? So you'll find Rosie, the Secretary General, talking to the Ministry of Education, saying these are the conventions in education, these are the SDGs and SDG 4, and these are the targets.
These are the protocols that you are signatory to.
Yes. So we keep reminding them.
Because there, Uganda, we are very good at signing. Rosie, that is one thing I've come to accept. My country is good at signing those protocols.
Yes.
But then the burden or the challenge has always been implementation. That's why we agreed that 50% of the national budget under this treaty should go to this. But then it never happens.
So our duty is to keep reminding that you are signatories, and therefore you have an obligation to UNESCO. You know, these good programs that are coming up are good for the country because they lead to sustainable development. I meet the culture ministry. We talk about culture. We talk about gender issues. We meet the ICT and we talk about these things and remind them, because UNESCO headquarters are in Paris. We are in Uganda, and we too also know, being Ugandans, we know our country's needs in all these program areas. And we advise UNESCO that our need, despite this long shopping list, we think this one may not pertain to us.
Maybe let's first understand what are the core values of UNESCO, because this will give us more understanding.
Yes.
What are they? What does it stand for? So that we know that as you, the Commission in Uganda, yes, these are the priorities.
Yes.
This is what you should be pushing for. Then it will be a good yardstick for us to understand whether you're relevant, whether you've pushed for this, or it's mere occupancy of offices.
Yes. When I introduced UNESCO, I said it was built on the principles of peace in the minds of men and women, through education, through natural science, through social and human science, through culture, through communication and information. Now, UNESCO believes that when ignorance, for example, is addressed through advocating for literacy, we shall have a population that is fairly literate, that will fairly understand the values of humanity, and therefore learn to live together, learn to advocate for things that cause peace other than peacelessness. Through sciences, through innovations, through addressing issues of biodiversity, through the issues, addressing the issues of climate change, UNESCO is able indirectly to broker peace, because if we have, for example, in the biosphere reserves, animals struggling for space with human beings, then you can already see an area for conflict. You've had oftentimes in regions like Mount Elgon, where government begins to say this is gazetted, this is don't encroach. So UNESCO, does those studies to ensure that we have peace in those programs, and therefore the programs translate to the human beings that benefit from it. Then in culture, we have cultural diversity. I'll tell you that you belong to a different tribe. I too belong to a different, but we are here in the studio. Most important thing is we are human beings. And that is the outstanding value of UNESCO. Humanity is at the core of UNESCO's functions. Humanity and peace building. So it is through those 5 program areas. So whatever is done at the helm of it, it's peace and peace and peace.
Well, still understanding Uganda National Commission for UNESCO, what they do, and of course, have they been able to have an impact on transforming Uganda? We've well understood the relationship between UNESCO and, of course, Uganda National Commission. But let's also look at the interventions that you've carried out. Let's better answer, have these caused any transformation? Because that is vital for us to know. Since 1962, you said? Yes. Until now, you've been present in this country. Yes. And of course, we need to know what are some of yardsticks that you can point to and say, yes, this is what we've achieved. This is what we've been able to influence, having given us a picture of the vision and the picture that the top office there in Paris wants to see nations, member states, the 193 push for.
Thank you. The interventions since 1963 are really very many, but I will single out those that have had an impact, lasting impact. In 1971, between 1971 and 1979, UNESCO participated and contributed to the establishment of a department called the Planning Department in the Ministry of Education. And this planning department is directly linked to the International Institute of Education Planning, which is a Category 1 institute of UNESCO. So by doing this, it was supposed to help Ministry of Education and the country to plan for education. You know, when you fail to plan, even in UBC, you fail to plan, then you cannot really know what you are doing. So the Institute guides worldwide member states on how to plan for education, including what budget to, you know, advocate for from the country coffers, what capacity building needs are needed for contemporary times, etc. Like now we are talking about COVID, and IIEP is looking for data, what is happening in the country. So UNESCO made this contribution, and it is something people may not remember or may not even link it to. The National Curriculum Development Center.
You've spoken what I wanted to ask next. Regarding curriculum, since that time till now.
Yes.
This is something that has been on the minds of Ugandans.
Yes.
Outdated, not relevant. Recently we saw the new curriculum where the United Nations had an input into this.
Yes.
So many said it's not really that much of any difference. But continue.
Yes, between 1973 and 1979, UNESCO again contributed, you know, that intellectual input and linking NCDC with the IBE, the institution.
That is the National Curriculum Development Center.
Yes, with the IBE, the Institute of the International Bureau of Education. That is another Category 1 institute of UNESCO based in Geneva. And their program is curriculum. What can be put into the country's curriculum to enhance education? So UNESCO did that kitchen work, you know, thinking through what NCDC should be. And now we have NCDC established, but the cook house was managed by UNESCO.
How relevant has this been in Uganda's education system?
I think it is very relevant.
Where many have said it's not a Ugandan thing, and therefore maybe it's not applicable, it's not applying so much towards the transformation that the country needs in this 21st century. You
know, when we started our education system, it was, of course, colonial based. It was about, you know, white collar jobs. They wanted to train clerks, and this was it. But a curriculum is not cast on stone. A country revises their curriculum now and again, according to the contemporary needs, according to, you know, what is happening, what are the needs. Now it's about skills. Can we therefore think about reorienting our curriculum to address the skills needs in this country? So the establishment of the institution was very important, but now how the country uses it, how the country addresses the contemporary issues is left to the member state. But the country can still advocate for support from UNESCO through the IBE, the International Bureau of Education, and say we need capacity building in this area. But
how has the Uganda National Commission for UNESCO then pushed for this in Uganda currently? Because there's so much of the challenges in our economy, in our society, that is anchored on curriculum.
Yes.
And your role is to ensure that actually the bigger picture of UNESCO is implemented here.
I will tell you, 2015, we got the SDGs. And we got SDG 4, which has 7+3 targets. Many of the targets are issues that government has been dealing with already. For example, ECD, gender parity, girls and boys into technical vocational. But there is 4.7 that deals with, a rather unique aspect of education, and that is education for sustainable development and global citizenship education. Now, this type of education, you and I could have been exposed to it unconsciously, where you are told, don't discriminate, learn to live together, learn to value, even if somebody is as dark-skinned as me, she's still a human being, and you play about certain things, and you value the environment. Now, UNESCO came up deliberately with this particular target because the world has gradually lost the values of education. We are drumming up for physics, for the sciences, for mathematics, without putting into consideration that the output is a human being, finally, who must live in society and live with certain values. So UNESCO has brought that particular target up to emphasize on those missing or disappearing soft skills that are missing among the learners, and consequently the grown-ups, because these are grow up, and you'll find a well-learned person being a petty thief, for example, a murderer, does not value humanity, discriminates, as insults the way they want. So the National Commission for UNESCO has played a very big role in this. One, when all these were being advocated for, we lobbied for interventions from another Category 2 center in South Korea. They were looking for partners who can do what. And they found Uganda very, aggressive and assertive in these things. So we began looking at how we can infuse global citizenship education concepts into the curriculum without really overhauling the curriculum. So we did the infusion with NCDC, with the support of the APCU in Korea, and we infused global citizenship education in the curriculum for P4 and P5 in 2 subjects. It was a pilot, but we rolled it out. Wherever this pilot has been rolled, there's been significant difference. I'll tell you that we did it in the Kiriandongo settlement camp, where we have refugees, the Dinka and the Nua. They don't sit together like you and I. They don't talk to each other. But when this intervention was rolled out to them, we were told that after 1 term, they started playing together. They started sitting next to each other. In the past, a fight would ensue in the classroom to the school compound. Then the parents in the camps come with clubs into so the school becomes a battlefield. There is no peace. Now, these values, when instilled in the young people, they grow up knowing that the bottom line is we are human beings and we must live in peace. So Uganda National Commission for UNESCO has made that contribution. We have also made a contribution in education for sustainable development. We spearheaded the development of the implementation strategy. We have spearheaded the development of the policy, which is still waiting for approval. We have done a lot of capacity building with many groups, parliamentarians, teachers, etc. That is a remarkable contribution, I would say.
Education for sustainable development.
Yes.
Just that first.
Yes.
Of course, we know that like issue of policy that are ways to be signed. But how do you push for this? Is it through lobbying? Is it how do you push for this?
Do you mean pushing for it in country or with
in country? In
country, yes, you have to drum it up. For example, my colleagues who are watching know that I will always talk about sustainable development goals. Where are we? You know, it's about advocacy. We keep advocating, and then also lobbying. Right now, we have these issues reflected in the Ministry of Education strategic plan. So the country is, ready to embrace it. Once it is planned for, then you are sure at least there will be some implementation.
Rose, let me understand this. You're the people in this area. Is it usually scarcity of funds that maybe hinders implementation of, for example, the Millennium Development Goals?
Sustainable now.
You see?
Yes.
What really is the problem? Because we go and sign, we pen our signatures. Delightedly, not coerced. Maybe if we are, I don't know, that a country has to sign among the 193. But then we get back home, and some of these may seem so easy as government commitment to them, but actually it doesn't. It takes time, and you're doing much that is required, and governments really understanding the relevancy of these. Why is the problem?
Two things I would say with my experience and working relations are possible. One, the issue of funding for new interventions usually is a challenge. And to advocate for more funds to implement these activities may really be a hindrance. Then the other one is, the mindset. People fear relatively new things. They want to go about doing their things business as usual. So the fear for the unknown, the fear of changing, the way you have been working is so great. And then, of course, there's a lot of sometimes negativity where, some people have resigned, You understand when I say they have left it, to the Almighty until maybe the time when they exit. So the enthusiasm, the passion for driving some of these changes may not really be there. Yes.
Well, we'll go for a break, and when we return, we'll be deliberating more on Uganda National Commission for UNESCO, their role, what they do, and to better understand what we expect of them, because they have been in Uganda since 1963, and of course they have been pushing to ensure that what the United Nations Education, Scientific, Culture Organization at the best in Paris there wants the member states to be following for sustainable development is achieved. We'll return shortly. Keep it on UBC TV.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Kwatesimu! For the first time in Uganda, you can pay in installments and own a smartphone instantly. Get to own the Samsung A3 Core, Samsung A01 or Samsung A11 and pay back in either daily, weekly or monthly installments for a period of a year. To check if you're eligible for the offer, dial *284 *49# today. You also enjoy free 500 MB on the purchased phone every month for the entire loan repayment period. Uganda nyuma. Airtel, the smartphone network, in proud partnership with MasterCard, Samsung and Asante Financial Services.
The day the world stopped was the day we found where to go. From now on, we are not going to leave anything on our plates, because we've learned to savor the moments that were always there, and they never tasted this good.
Kapo, you seem to be in a hurry. Where are you going to?
I'm gonna pay URA visit.
But you can access URA online. Why pay a visit?
To know more about the Kakasa business solutions, namely digital tracking solution, the voluntary disclosure program, and electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solution, which have turned my business around. You know I need to be on top of my game to protect my empire. If you know, you know.
I too need to know what Kapo knows.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business. Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back, and thank you for keeping it on UBC TV. This is Good Morning Uganda Extra, and today we're privileged to be learning more regarding the Uganda National Commission for UNESCO, a body that has been around since 1963, and of course ensuring that we achieve the sustainable development goals, and of course as viewed following the vision and mission of the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, based in Paris, that is in France, that sees affairs in about 193 countries with the aim of pushing for peace, stability, and of course development. And with me in the studios, I have, that is the Secretary General of Uganda National Commission for UNESCO, who is Rosie Agoi. Hope I pronounced it very well.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, you know, people who did literature, they're very, I don't want to use the word picky, but regarding pronunciation, articulation, and all that. So, you know, you're on alert when pronouncing their names. Rosie, by the time we went for a break, we were still looking at the impact that really this great office has done to this country. Let's look at education, then a couple of aspects there, because we believe 1963, you've been around for some time. There should be something really tangible for Ugandans.
Yes. Thank you. Good morning, viewers, once again, and welcome back. I was talking about our interventions in education that have made significant difference in the lives of Ugandans. And I will now talk about the teacher policy. We now have the teacher policy in place, but the background to this teacher policy was initiated by the government of Uganda with support from UNESCO. You remember Honorable Bitamazire?
The longest serving minister for education.
Yes, the
There's
teacher.
a time we thought, talk about education, I mean, Bitamazire.
Yes. When Honorable Bitamazire was minister, there was a program called TISA, Teacher Training Initiative for Sub-Saharan Africa. This program run by UNESCO was really selective, and Uganda was not party to it. Honorable Bitamazire made us fill forms, National Commission, I want TISA in Uganda. So we did fill forms, and when the Director General then, Madame Irina Bokova, visited, she still talked about having TISA do something for the teacher issues. Now when TISA came, we decided that we needed to do an in-depth analysis of teacher issues. You and I know teachers are the lowest paid, they are the unhappiest people, but we don't know the how, the why, and the effect. So UNESCO led this study, do an in-depth analysis of the teacher pre-service. I've now left school, I'm going to become a teacher, trained as a teacher. 1, do I meet the grades? Is it a last resort? am I happy to go for it? Because we know, honestly, there are unhappy teachers.
And I can't wait for the findings of that in-depth analysis.
Yes, unhappy teachers. They in service, it's a last resort.
Yes.
They are trained even by unhappy tutors. Unhappy tutors. So you can imagine the product. Then they get into the system, deployment is a problem. The salary, when they get it, is appalling. There is no housing. They have to move from one long distance to the other to get to school through thick and thin, dust and rain. Unhappy teachers. How do these teachers perform? Unhappy teachers teaching your child. Daughter, can you imagine such a scenario? So UNESCO made this analysis and unearthed the teacher issues from pre-entry to exit, even when they get out of service. How do they get their pension? Is it in time, or the teacher comes to public service and languishes and cries and until death? They may never get their benefit. What happens? So this was documented. A very big analysis was made. This was documented, and the recommendations are some of the things that we're seeing. Teacher incentive. People think incentive is about money, but UNESCO said this, made this recommendation. It's not just about money. I can be, I'm a teacher, you read the profile, right? There is nothing that pleases a teacher like being commended for a good job. I'm telling you, I meet my girls on the streets near Parliament, and they're like, Madam, I am, you know, you feel the joy, you feel recognized. You feel you've done a good job. So sometimes it is just about telling a teacher, thank you. So the reward system, the payment system, the housing system, all these are incentives. Those were recommendations. Another one was teacher dialogue. You know, teachers, apart from UNATRO that is really, you know, pushy, they may not have a platform for talking about these issues. So a platform has been created for
teacher dialogue.
Teacher dialogue already. These are things that I'm talking about implemented, because government thankfully grabbed the recommendations and ran with it and said we want more. But something that is tangible for this country is the teacher policy, because they said we need a teacher policy. So the teacher policy has issues inbuilt to address the issues that have been identified in the study, from pre-service to exit. You know, in terms of training, in terms of capacity building, in terms of salaries, in terms of, you know, structures. We're now thinking of a teacher institute, for example. All these are recommendations from the teacher, and we give credit to UNESCO for this. So for me, I think this is the best thing that happened for the education program.
The teacher policy.
The teacher policy arising from the teacher study. Then when we get to culture, you know about Kasubi tombs. Kasubi tombs is inscribed as a heritage site. It has outstanding universal values. And by inscribing Kasubi tombs as a heritage site, it is no longer just a Ugandan or a Buganda thing. It is international. There are guests that fly into the country to understand what are these cultural values associated with the tombs of the Buganda kings. So this was done, and we have had benefits to tourism, and when, of course, it got gutted by fire, we have had the whole world, you know, coming in to get concerned, to make contributions. The Japanese are the ones now making a contribution to reconstruct Kasubi tombs through UNESCO. It is Japanese funds in trust. Then, of course, the revitalization of the Mpako tradition of the Batoro, Banyoro, the Banyabindi in western Uganda. This is the naming of, you know, the Apuri, the Amoti, the pet names. It's something dying out, but it has values. The Batoro know it, the Banyoro know it, the Banyabindi know it. So it's something dying out, and UNESCO is revitalizing it. And then there are other things like inventories of tribes like the Alur, the Acholi, which are being worked on. The Bigwala guard trumpet, guad trumpet for the Basoga. It's a very unique musical instrument, dying out, so UNESCO is preserving them. And when they are preserved, then when
you talk about preserving, UNESCO is preserving them. How are you preserving them? Because, for example, cultural sites, yes, we know. If you remember when the tombs caught fire, UNESCO had a contribution.
Yes.
When you talk about these other, that are not more of commodities, but maybe the
intangible.
Intangible, the intangible ones. How does UNESCO preserve these?
Now, UNESCO documents.
Okay.
And that is one way of preserving. When Kasubi Tombs was razed down by fire, we pulled out literature off our shelves, and everybody was amazed. Because before Kasubi was inscribed, a lot of studies were made and documented on, you know, the grass that gets onto the roof, the poles. Each of those items has significant values, and attached to either the clans or to you know, certain customs and traditions, all documented. So one way of preserving is through documentation, so that it's not lost. Because in the past it was through oral literature, but you know, oral literature has been taken over by so many modern people. No longer sit around the fire to be told about the story of the tombs. So that is one way in which UNESCO preserves. So all these, I think, are a big milestone, especially in culture, in what UNESCO has been able to do. And UNESCO works with us. So we also cry out and say, our needs are this and that. So the NATCOM is there, middle, to broker.
Apart from documentation, how do you fight extinction?
Extinction, I would say advocacy. Documentation is one of them, as we've already mentioned. Advocacy, continuous advocacy, you know, and letting the value come out, so that people are sensitized and they don't destroy. Actually, the advocacy does more work than anything else, because if you know that, God forbid, UBC's past glory, where it was, you know, I mean, that memory is lost. You know, you are now here, but that memory, unfortunately, is lost. Nobody was able to document it before it was transferred here. But it would be good, you know, so that in your programs you talk about UBC, then 1962. I'm sure it's also 1962. Or is it
UTV?
UTV. Now it is UBC. But I think it's, well, 50-50. Okay. Then in the natural science, can I proceed? In the natural sciences, we have the Department of Food Science and Technology. 1988, UNESCO established a chair in that department. It was not yet a department, just a UNESCO chair. You know, a UNESCO chair is a virtual chair. Usually there's a professor that is doing research on a subject that is of importance. So there was this chair, and UNESCO supported a professor to begin thinking of how the food science technology department can be established. So now that we have
you can say like Dr. Ivan
These are professors that were sent by UNESCO, white, I would say. there. So intellectual input there. UNESCO would not do big brick and mortar, you know, but the intellectual input gave birth to that department. Then we know the windy, impenetrable forest. It's a World Heritage Site. We also know the World Heritage Site. They have and since the whole world knows it's served, it is protected. Once it is inscribed, the international body takes over, you know, trying to see that everything remains contact. So these are the ones that I could quickly mention because I know time is running out. Then in the natural science program, we have and in the past we have contributed towards establishing a national plan of action for human rights education, and this document is a document that is live. It is used by Ministry of Education, used by National Curriculum Development Center to advocate for the issue of human rights, not the human rights of, you know, going to be aggressive, but you know, it's peace. It is about understanding.
I would push it that way, and also saying pushing it at more of a tussling and hustling format of protecting those that want to exercise that.
Yes, very, very important. Then in communication and information, we have 5 community media centers, and these are radios are supposed to serve the community, and 5 of them, if I can remember, there is Nakaseke, there is Naweru, there is Kachwekano, there is Ngora, and Buama. Now, this was by UNESCO, and the prime objective was to encourage literacy. Literacy, teaching people how to market, aspects of UNESCO's, even sciences. No, they were used, of course, lately they have been more or less much, but the sole purpose was to promote literacy in the community. It also economic or social or environmental. So these are there, and they are still registered under the National Commission for UNESCO. Recently, we filled in the renewal of the licenses with the communication center, and they belong, and they have made a big contribution to sustainable development of the people in
you talked about in the relationship of sustainable development goals, but the biggest challenge has been sustainability of these good programs. Most people find these are long-time projects.
Yeah.
Many times we've had projects of funding, good ideas, then you, the community office, want to push for these ideas, but over a time, as they have had an impact, then comes the funding aspect of it. Sometimes we've seen them collapse or have them present, but more like a white fund that really doesn't have so much. Where do you factor in sustainability in these programs?
And I would like to go to the sustainability issue to let you know that UNESCO does its work in a catalytic manner. You know, in a pilot manner. Bring ideas on the table, talk the issues, make the recommendations, propose the recommendations, and let other players come in to support
Now I see why there is slow implementation.
Yes, the slow implementation and lack of sustainability therefore comes in, because in this country we seem to have this dependency syndrome. So if UNESCO has brought something, they will always want UNESCO to continue doing it. Yes, continue. And yet UNESCO is not a funder. Unlike UNICEF, UNESCO is not a funder. UNESCO is actually called the intellectual arm of the UN. Will think through very intelligently on how to sort out issues. So when they have thought through, the World Bank should come in, UNICEF should come in, the government itself should come in. So many of the unsustainable interventions that maybe have collapsed is because people still expect, they don't grasp the concept that now we are on our feet, we should run with this idea and make it grow. They will always look for, more support. Of course, once in a while we're asking, we still need to do more pilots. That you cannot pilot forever. You need to roll out. So that
uses extension.
Yes, extension. Yes,
extension.
Give us
extension.
more.
I've also gotten to learn some of these technicalities that are using the diplomatic or extension. We are extending the pilot project.
Yes.
Kumbe, the reality is we don't have funds,
and we don't want to.
We are not taking this as a priority. So we ask for an extension of the project. But also, there have been arguments that much as these are very good initiatives, sometimes they're not government initiated. So the governments then may not understand them very well. The more of some that sometimes government has imposed on them, because the Paris office could see them as workable, but actually may not be very workable. Have you come up with workable, implementable solutions?
Yes, and I will answer it twofold. One is that
not homegrown ideas.
We signed to the conventions, yes, meaning we agree. But in those documents, there are things that don't pertain to Uganda. For example, issues of small islands, we don't have those very serious issues like in the Caribbean and so on. We don't have. So the National Commission, therefore, will sieve through and say, these are our issues. So it is a two-way. UNESCO will bring government, then we harmonize and say, which are the priority areas. So nothing is really pushed down. It's an agreement. It is an agreement. And when we get to the table, we also synthesize and say these are good things so that we get on board. Nothing really has been top down. But the fact that you're a signatory, you subscribe. But we negotiate, we clean out and say this is not a big issue for us. I think this is a priority for us.
Finally, on that, being a signatory as Uganda, I don't know if you're in position to answer this. Well, I'll get the facts out of you. But sometimes we get corridor talk that why our government sometimes not implement these is their coerced, their terms and conditions. We either do this, you either become a signatory or miss out on this and on this bit of funding. Are these just rumors? Are they real?
Well, I don't think I'm able to answer that because it's...
You're at liberty either to answer or not.
Yes, because ours is really, it hasn't been that. Ours is UNESCO, National Commission, and our line ministries. So with our stakeholders, we haven't found, that kind of scenario where you are coerced, you either do it or not.
Sometimes you wonder, these are very good initiatives, very good programs by UNESCO. Then why would governments, and maybe there's been that argument, that first they're not homegrown ideas, then second, sometimes governments end up being pushed to the wall to pen signatures, then later find it hard to implement. But that said, Rose, may I have your final remarks regarding that is the works of this great body that has been in the country for some good years, and of course a message to Ugandans regarding the Uganda National Commission for UNESCO.
Yes, my final remark is that UNESCO belongs to everyone. You and I are beneficiaries of UNESCO, and through the National Commission for UNESCO, you can always access whatever services UNESCO has got to offer. So we are seated in the Ministry of Education on 2nd floor in Embassy House, and our doors are open. You can come and consult us. In the past, before COVID, we had fellowship programs that are open as and when it applies to you in whatever fields of competencies of UNESCO. So don't think UNESCO is a far-fetched organization. UNESCO belongs to the people, and it is because of the people that UNESCO exists. It is about humanity. So you're welcome, and be part of UNESCO, be proud of UNESCO, and UNESCO is here through the National Commission for UNESCO.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Rosie Agoy, who is the Secretary General of Uganda National Commission for UNESCO. So much has been discussed, and I hope now you're better informed regarding what the Uganda National Commission does for UNESCO and how best we can access them to ensure that we push forward the dreams of sustainability, the sustainable development goals for a better Uganda, for you, me, and everybody there. Have a lovely day. Keep it on UBC TV. Good morning, Uganda. God bless Motherland, Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
This March, in commemoration of the Uganda Water and Environment Week 2021, we deliberate on the value of water and environment resources in transforming our economy and livelihoods through a 371-kilometer walk. From Kampala through Mpigi, Mityana, Mubende, Chegegwa, Chenjojo, Fort Portal, to the riverbanks of River Nyamwamba in Kasese, we walk for water. We walk for the environment. We walk for climate change. We walk for public health. We walk for socio-economic transformation. The Uganda Water and Environment Week Walk is proudly sponsored by
The day the world stopped was the day we found where to go. From now on, we are not going to leave anything on our plates, because we've learned to savor the moments that were always there, and they never tasted this good.
Was brought to you by no one should stop you from finishing what's yours. That's why MTN gives you data bundles that don't expire. Load MTN Freedom bundles using My MTN app and enjoy the freedom to finish your data bundles.
MTN.